In the late 1970s, in response to the stagflation and inflation crisis, the Federal Reserve Bank raised interest rates. They hiked interest rates aggressively all the way up to around 20%. Because inflation was a big problem. As a result, over the next 5 years, the cumulative inflation was around 52% because remember, we were facing an inflation crisis while wages over those same 5 years grew by around 36%, which means the average person who was working a job became poorer because their salary bought you less stuff. Well, this is where things really start to get interesting when you take a look at asset prices over those same 5 years, because what we saw is that the stock market grew by around 54%. Which means, yes, it beat inflation, although not by that much. Real estate prices did not keep up with inflation. Gold prices actually stayed flat. These 5 years were some of the most volatile prices for gold in the history of time because first, gold prices skyrocketed because of concerns about inflation, and then gold prices came back down to where they were before. So it was a very volatile time for gold. Well, Bitcoin did not exist. During this Federal Reserve Bank cycle of raising interest rates, the people that became wealthier were actually the people that were holding on to cash and the ones that were holding on to bonds. These were people that were earning 15% a year in interest on their money, and you were able to beat inflation by holding on to these long-term bonds because interest rates kept going up, and those were the people that became wealthier. But now take a look at what happened as we got into 2008. The housing market was collapsing, the economy was falling, and the Federal Reserve Bank then started to cut interest rates and print money to stimulate the economy. As a result, then what we saw over the next 5 years was that inflation came in at a cumulative approximately 11% according to the government numbers. Now, you have to take a look at wage growth relative to inflation to see what does that price growth actually mean. And the median income in America grew by a little bit under 7%, which means, again, the average person who was relying on a salary became poorer because their wages did not keep up with the price growth of things. But now we have to compare this inflation relative to the prices of different assets. Over those same 5 years, we saw the stock market, specifically the S&P 500, grow by around 200%. We saw real estate prices grow by around 50%. Gold prices grew by around 70%. And Bitcoin did not exist yet, which means now the person that became wealthier was not the person holding on to cash. It was not the person holding on to bonds or lending money to the United States government. It was the asset owners. People that owned stocks became incredibly wealthy. Real estate investors became wealthier. Gold owners became wealthier, while the person that was just working for their paycheck became slowly poorer. But this is where things really start to get interesting. When we take a look at what the Federal Reserve Bank did in 2020, and we can compare all this data now to what might be coming in 2026, because we have a new chairman who is leading the Federal Reserve Bank now. In 2020, the pandemic hit, the economy shut down, and now the Federal Reserve Bank cut interest rates to the lowest levels that we have seen in modern history, and they started printing money as a way to start stimulating the economy again. We all remember what happened in 2020, right? Well, as a result, we saw inflation shoot up again. Cumulative inflation was right around 25% between the years 2020 to 2025, according to the government numbers. I keep saying according to the government numbers because many times people felt a real inflation rate higher than what the government reported, but I'm going to stick with the government numbers here, while at the same time, the median income in America also rose, but only by around 20%. So you can start to see a pattern here that whether the Federal Reserve Bank hikes interest rates or cut interest rates, we have seen that incomes, median incomes, have not kept up with the price growth of things, which means, again, the average person relying on a salary has become poorer. Why? Because your salary buys you less stuff, and this is according to the government inflation numbers. The real inflation numbers are oftentimes a whole lot higher. But to really compare apples to apples, we have to take a look at what happened to asset prices, because now in the 5 years following the pandemic and this Federal Reserve Bank cutting cycle, what we saw is that the stock market, specifically the S&P 500, boomed by around 160%, while at the same time real estate prices boomed by around 45%, while at the same time gold prices boomed by around 125%, while at the same time Bitcoin prices shot up by 1,600%. Now I want to talk about Bitcoin specifically just for a second, because what happens when you start to see interest rates come down and more money get printed by the Federal Reserve Bank is when there's more money out there, people can make more speculative investments. Why? Because when interest rates are lower, every investor, an investment institution, an investing bank in the world says, oh, I can borrow money for 1, 2, 3, or 4%. That means I only need to get a 5, 6, 7, or 8% return on my money for it to be a justified investment. And so now all of a sudden, everybody on Wall Street has these huge piles of cash because the government is just giving away money and interest rates are the lowest rates ever. And all these institutions say, we need a place to invest this money, because we want to take on as much debt as possible because it's essentially free money. And so now you start to see the rise of speculative investing. We saw venture capital firms make so much money because they were just pumping money into speculative assets. Valuations started to skyrocket because now so much money is going in. And this is one of the things that helped fuel the rise of Bitcoin. Not to mention, the Trump administration also came in and talked a lot about how they wanted to improve Bitcoin and make Bitcoin better. But what we saw happen was all this new money came in and people wanted a place to put it. And Bitcoin seemed like an excellent source because, number one, it had that speculative nature, a lot of upside potential, not to mention it gave people this protection against this hyperinflation and the value of the dollar crashing. And so Bitcoin then saw new record highs. They went from around $7,000 a coin back in the early part of 2020 up to its peak of well over $100,000 a coin as all this money was being created and people wanted a place to store it. So what we saw happen here was, again, the Federal Reserve Bank cut interest rates, and we saw the asset owners really get a windfall here because not only did stocks, real estate, and gold rise, but we saw speculative assets, not just Bitcoin, but you can start to take a look at other speculative assets across markets. They boomed because as interest rates went down, valuations and speculative investments went up. Because of all the changes happening in the economy right now, I'm hosting a live, free, and virtual investor workshop on June 16th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, noon, where I'm going to be going over, number one, how the economy is changing, and number two, how you can build wealth through these changes in the economy. That way you can build wealth outside of just your 401k, outside of just your house, because when you have all these changes happening with money, all these changes happening in our government, all these changes happening with AI and technologies, all of these create panic, but they also create opportunities. And some people are going to become incredibly wealthy because of them. And on June 16th, I'm going to be showing you my firm's research as to where money is moving and how we can create better investment opportunities for you. It's a free workshop and it's live, but you do have to register to reserve your spot because our software has a limited number of people that can actually join us live. And in the past, when I've done these live workshops, we've hit capacity every single time. And as an added bonus, when you sign up for the investor workshop, you're also going to get Market Briefs, which is my newsletter for investors, completely free. It's read by hundreds of thousands of investors every morning. And when you show up live on my investor workshop on June 16th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, noon, you're also going to get a free digital copy of my company's new book, How Money Changed Forever. But to actually get a digital copy of this book, you have to actually show up live on June 16th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, noon. So if you're an investor, I invite you to join me for my live investor workshop on June 16th. If you have not registered yet, again, I have that link for you down in the description below. And now the question that everybody's wondering is what's going to come next? Because as of May 15th, 2026, we have a new leader at the Federal Reserve Bank, Kevin Warsh, and he is appointed by President Trump. President Trump says that he wants lower interest rates. President Trump said that he's not going to appoint anybody who does not want lower interest rates. So on one hand, President Trump and a lot of the media says we're going to see lower interest rates because Trump wants lower interest rates. But then Kevin Warsh, the new chairman, says, I don't know if we're going to give lower interest rates because inflation is a problem. Why does that matter? Because generally, you lower interest rates when inflation is not a problem. Lower interest rates make inflation worse. That's why in the late 1970s, when we were facing the inflation crisis, the Federal Reserve Bank had to raise interest rates to try to bring inflation lower. So you lower interest rates to boost the economy, which makes inflation worse. And you raise interest rates to fight inflation, but that makes the economy worse. And now today in 2026, we're facing both problems. We have economic problems. We're seeing the economy slow down. We're seeing our national debt problem. And we also have an inflation problem. Inflation is going up because of higher oil prices, because of the conflict in the Middle East. and because of all the government spending that we're doing. So let me diagram the problem that we're seeing in our economy today, which we haven't really seen in about 100 years. Right now, our national debt is about $39 trillion. This means the government has spent $39 trillion that we don't have. Well, at the same time, in the beginning of 2026, our economy was $31.9 trillion large, which means our economy is about $32 trillion large, which means now we have a debt to GDP ratio of about 122%. Why does that matter? Well, think of it this way. When you go to get a loan to buy a house, most banks are going to ask you to put down a down payment of, 5%, 10%, 20%? The reason why is the bank doesn't want to give you a 100% loan. That's why the bank wants you to put down 20%. That way the bank can finance the other 80%. That is a 80% loan to value mortgage. Right now, we have a 122% debt to GDP, which means the United States government is underwater on our debt. And to put this in perspective, the last time we saw our debt to GDP numbers anywhere near this high was after World War II, around the mid-1940s. And the reason why we're facing it today is the aftermath of the pandemic. And now the question is, what is the Federal Reserve Bank going to do? Because this decision by the Federal Reserve Bank to help solve this problem is going to make some people incredibly wealthy. And the question we don't know is, what is the Federal Reserve Bank going to do? What we know is that certain decisions are going to make certain people wealthy. When the Federal Reserve Bank raises interest rates, that is good for people that are holding on to cash, because when the Federal Reserve Bank is raising interest rates, well, now your high-yield savings accounts pay higher interest rates. Now those bonds by the government are paying higher interest rates. When the Federal Reserve Bank lowers interest rates, then we generally see speculative assets go up as well. Now, this does not mean that these traditional assets, the stock market, real estate, specifically these two, don't benefit when interest rates go up. What we have seen is that generally, whether interest rates are going up or down, stocks and real estate do well for the long run. Period. But then when you enter periods of the Federal Reserve Bank raising interest rates, people generally want safer investments. Because when the Federal Reserve Bank is raising interest rates, those speculative investments start to struggle because you can't go out and raise as much money. When the Federal Reserve Bank is cutting interest rates, now there's more money floating around out there, there's more investments being made, and that's when speculative investments have the ability to boom even more. And this is where everybody has an opinion on what's going to come next, but we're not going to know until June 16th and June 17th, because that's when the Federal Reserve Bank is going to host their next meeting, and that's when Kevin Warsh is going to give his first actual statement as the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank as to what he wants to do next, which is one of the reasons why on June 16th, I'm hosting my live investor workshop, which is why, again, if you haven't registered for it yet, I invite you to register. I have that link for you down in the description. But again, this is where everybody has an opinion, because on one hand, people are saying that President Trump has got his pick and he's got the guy that is going to want to lower interest rates, while Kevin Warsh is now saying, I'm not going to be a sock puppet for President Trump. I'm going to do what I think is right. Now, before I go over specific investment ideas, I want to remind you that when it comes to actually making decisions as to what the Federal Reserve Bank is going to do, whether it's cutting interest rates or hiking interest rates, the Federal Reserve Bank cannot just make a one-person vote. It has to be a majority vote. And there are 12 voting members inside of the Federal Reserve Bank. So Kevin Warsh is now one of those voting members, and in order for him to actually make a decision to cut interest rates or hike interest rates, he must have at least 7 votes total. The reason why that matters today is because we also have the most divisive Federal Reserve Bank that we have seen in modern history, where we're seeing more and more people in the Federal Reserve Bank giving dissenting opinions, meaning some people are saying, hey, we want to keep interest rates the same, and others are saying, no, we should cut interest rates. Others are saying, no, we need to raise interest rates. We don't normally see that happen at the Federal Reserve Bank, but it's happening more and more now, which is why this new chairman at the Federal Reserve Bank is so important, because he might be able to sway the Federal Reserve Bank one way or the other. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to continue your financial education journey, I have another video that I think you'll love. All you got to do is click that button right over there. And for those of you who want to stay up to date on the top finance and business news, you can join Market Briefs, my free financial newsletter, by clicking that button below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.